what does it actually mean, to live a full life, an authentic life? Is it about like constantly chasing this perfect image, this flawless version of ourselves we think we should be?
Right, this polished ideal that's probably impossible anyway.
Exactly. Or is there maybe a different kind of strength, something deeper and just, well, showing up, being seen, even when things are messy and imperfect?
That vulnerability piece.
Yeah, that's really the big question we're diving into today.
Yeah.
We've gathered a really fascinating mix of sources.
A really diverse set, actually.
Totally. We're talking ancient spiritual texts, deep philosophy, even some modern self-help perspectives.
And what's wild is how they all seem to circle back to this same core theme, despite coming from such different places and times.
All right. It's this journey of like understanding ourselves better, figuring out how to handle our really deep emotions, the tough ones too.
And finding connection, real connection.
Yes.
Yeah.
And finding it not by hiding our flaws, but maybe, just maybe, because of them, through our imperfections.
Precisely. So our mission here is to kind of guide you through these insights. We're going to pull out those key nuggets of wisdom. We'll look at how these different traditions see the self, what that even means, how they suggest we face fear, because that's huge, and what paths they offer for transformation, for real growth. The ideas are pretty broad, I have to say.
Yeah.
We go from some really sharp critiques of the ego, like seeing it as almost inherently unhealthy,
Wow.
all the way to the incredible power of like unconditional love. But the thread tying it all together, it points towards what you might call a spirituality of imperfection.
Spirituality of imperfection. I like that.
Yeah, it's this idea that our struggles, our vulnerabilities, they aren't weaknesses we need to fix or hide. They're actually essential. They're part of the growth process, part of how we genuinely connect.
So embracing the messiness is actually the way forward.
In a way, yes. Embracing our unfinished nature might be the only way to become truly whole. We'll show you how these different sources point to that.
Okay, I'm ready. So settle in, everyone.
Yeah.
Because we're going to try and connect these dots. Some of these ideas might seem worlds apart at first, but hopefully you'll find some surprising links and maybe some...
It is intense, and he means it literally. Not just flawed, but fundamentally unhealthy. He sees it as the source of so much dysfunction and suffering.
So not just a minor inconvenience, but actively harmful.
That's his view. He even suggests that common ego traits, needing constant approval, being critical, not really listening when they get really strong, they actually look a lot like symptoms of mental disorders.
Huh. That makes you think.
And for Tolle, this ego is basically our sense of identity. It's who we think we are, our self-image tied to our past stories, our future worries. It defines us in the everyday world.
Okay, that's a really unsettling thought that the I think I am could be seen as pathological. It really challenges your whole sense of self.
It absolutely does. But Tolle doesn't just leave you there feeling disturbed.
Good. Chuckle slightly.
He contrasts this ego with something he calls the light of presence.
The presence, okay.
And this isn't just another thought or feeling, it's something much deeper. He describes it as the awareness that is prior to and deeper than any thoughts and emotions.
So it's like the space behind the thoughts.
Exactly. He calls it the underlying I am. And the key is you can sense this directly, right now. It's your fundamental beingness.
Like the feeling of just being here.
Yes, that inner space where all your experiences, thoughts, emotions, sensations just appear and disappear. Like thoughts are the clouds, but presence is the sky. The sky doesn't change even when the weather does.
I like that analogy, the sky. Okay.
And what's fascinating is how this understanding of the ego and the need to kind of move beyond it really changes how we look at relationships too.
How so?
Well, the book Conversations with God offers this really insightful, almost radical perspective on why we even have relationships.
Okay, I'm curious.
It says, and this really flips the script, the purpose of a relationship is to decide what part of yourself you'd like to see show up, not what part of another you can capture and hold.
Whoa, wait. So it's not about finding someone to complete me or getting something from them.
Not primarily, according to this view. Often we go into relationships looking for validation, security, trying to, like you said, capture something.
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
But this suggests the real point is self-discovery, seeing what parts of you emerge in the interaction. It's about self-realization, moving beyond that egoic need to grasp or control the other person.
That's a completely different way to look at it. Less about getting, more about becoming through the relationship.
Precisely. Which leads us nicely into this whole idea of detachment, doesn't it? Letting go of needing things to be a certain way, especially external things.
Right, like needing praise or fearing criticism.
Exactly. And the Tao Te Ching, that ancient wellspring of wisdom, speaks right to this in verse 13.
What does it say?
It advises, very simply, be wary of both honor and disgrace. And it adds, endless affliction is bound to the body.
Be wary of both honor and disgrace. So don't get too attached to either praise or blame.
That's the sense of it. It's encouraging detachment from those external judgments. Your inner peace shouldn't depend on whether people are clapping for you or pointing fingers.
Easier said than done, but I get the principle.
Mm-hmm.
And the endless affliction part. That sounds a bit grim.
Well, it can sound that way, but I think it's more about acceptance. Accepting that suffering, difficulty, it's just part of being human, part of having a body. It's not a personal failing. It's inherent to existing. Radical acceptance, really.
Okay, accepting the tough stuff as just part of the deal.
Yeah. And C.S. Lewis, he tackles this tension between our messy selves and our spiritual goals in a really interesting way in Mere Christianity.
Lewis always has such a unique perspective.
He does. He talks about praying the words, Our Father. He says when we do that, we're essentially dressing up as Christ.
Dressing up.
Yeah, he calls it outrageous cheek, considering we are, in his blunt words, a bundle of self-centered fears, hopes, greeds, jealousies, and self-conceit.
Chuckles. Okay, he doesn't pull punches.
Not at all. So we're this bundle of flaws, dressing up in this perfect ideal. But then Lewis adds, he has ordered us to do it.
Ah, so even though we feel unworthy, we're told to aim for that connection.
Exactly. It highlights this constant dance between who we are right now with all our imperfections and who we're called to be or aspire to be. It's an invitation to step into that higher identity, not because we've earned it, but because we're asked to.
That's beautiful, actually, that tension. And it makes me think about Augustine. His story, as told in The Road to Character. Talk about internal struggle.
Oh, absolutely. Augustine is almost the poster child for internal conflict.
He described himself as completely divided against himself, right? Like wanting shallow things, but hating himself for wanting them. Feeling totally restless, unaligned.
A war within himself, constantly pulled in different directions.
But here's the kicker, the really fascinating part. On the outside, people saw him as this studious and responsible young man. He was climbing the social ladder, doing well.
Right. Successful by external standards, even worked for the emperor.
It just blows my mind. It forces you to realize you can't judge a book by its cover, like, at all. Outward success tells you almost nothing about inner peace or alignment.
It's a timeless lesson, isn't it? The gap between the inner reality and the outer appearance.
Definitely.
And speaking of inner realities being reflected or sometimes hidden by the external, Marie Kondo offers a surprisingly deep insight.
Marie Kondo, like the tidying expert.
The very same. In the life-changing magic of tidying up, she says something I find quite profound. She argues that visible mess helps distract us from the true source of the disorder.
So the clutter isn't the real problem, it's just a distraction.
That's the idea. It gives you something external to focus on. But, she says, when your room is truly tidy, you have no choice but to examine your inner state.
Wow. So tidying becomes like a spiritual practice.
In a way, yes. It becomes a tool to confront the issues that are really important. By asking what inspires joy, you start figuring out what you love and what you need, not just with your stuff, but maybe in your life more broadly.
Okay, I never thought of decluttering like that. Connecting the outer order to inner clarity. That's cool.
It is, isn't it? A practical path to self-reflection.
And sometimes that push towards self-reflection doesn't come from tidying, but from something much harder, like rejection.
Ah, yes. Emerson has some powerful thoughts on that.
Right, in his essays. He says something like, people who love us make our life bigger, which makes sense.
They expand our world.
But then he says those who reject us as unworthy add another life. How does that work?
It's counterintuitive, for sure. He says, they build a heaven before us whereof we had not dreamed. Rejection, in his view, forces us to find new powers out of the recesses of the spirit and pushes us towards new and unattempted performances.
So being rejected can actually make us stronger, force us to dig deeper within ourselves.
That's the idea. It cuts off reliance on external approval and compels you to find your own footing, your own strength, capabilities you didn't even know you had.
Yeah.
It's growth through adversity.
Wow. Turning a negative into a powerful positive.
And we see a similar kind of deep self-definition happening in response to external change with Miyamoto Musashi.
The legendary samurai.
That's him. In The Complete Musashi, it talks about how he lived through a time when Japan found political stability. Peace was breaking out.
Which you'd think would be good for everyone.
You would. But Musashi felt that because of this peace, samurai were losing their sense of identity. The warrior spirit was fading.
Ah, so change threatened their core purpose.
Exactly. And his response wasn't just to complain. He retreated and wrote Gorenosho, the Book of Five Rings.
Why?
To preserve the very essence of warriorship. It was more than just strategy. It was his personal mission to capture and define that core identity before it disappeared. A profound act of self-reflection driven by external shifts.
So change forced him to really articulate what mattered most.
That's powerful. Okay, so we've looked inside at the self, the ego, how we see ourselves. Now let's talk about the emotional landscape. This is where, a lot of our imperfections and vulnerabilities really live.
Definitely. The realm of feelings, often turbulent. And maybe the biggest player in that realm is fear. We usually think of fear as bad, right? Something to get rid of.
It's our default reaction, isn't it?
Yeah.
Avoidance, suppression.
But Pema Chodron, in that Rillet, When Things Fall Apart, such a great title, she offers a completely different take. She says, fear is a natural reaction to moving closer to the truth.
Wow. Just pause on that for a second. Fear as a signpost towards truth.
Exactly. Not an obstacle, but a guide. It totally flips the script. Maybe that anxiety, that knot in your stomach isn't something wrong. Maybe it means you're on to something important.
It invites you to get curious about the fear rather than just reacting to it. Lean in, maybe.
Yeah, lean in. I like that.
And conversations with God actually helps us unpack fear a bit more, distinguishing between different kinds.
Oh, there are different kinds.
Well, this text suggests we're only born with two really basic natural fears, the fear of falling and the fear of loud noises.
Okay, those make sense. Survival instincts.
Right. They serve a purpose caution, but pretty much all our other fears, they're learned.
Learned how?
From our environment, our experiences, parents, society, culture. They get layered on. And the text makes a really critical point here about what happens when we don't deal with fear properly.
What's that?
It says, fear that is continually repressed becomes panic. And panic is described as a very unnatural emotion.
Unnatural.
Yeah. And incredibly destructive. It says, people have killed because of panic. Wars have started. Nations have fallen.
Goodness, that's heavy. So repressed fear can escalate into something truly dangerous.
That's the warning. It really underscores how vital it is to let ourselves feel and process our natural emotions, especially fear, in healthy ways instead of bottling them up until they explode.
Which connects back to Tolle, right? His idea of the pain body.
Absolutely. In The Power of Now, Tolle talks about this emotional pain body, which is essentially accumulated old emotional pain. He says all inner resistance is experienced as negativity.
Resisting what is.
Exactly. And here's a fascinating kind of perverse twist he points out. The ego often believes that being unhappy, clinging to negativity, will somehow buy you what you want.
How does that work? Like, playing the victim gets you sympathy or changes things.
Sort of. But Tolle argues it's a delusion. He says negativity actually stops the good things from arising. It blocks the flow.
Okay, so how do you break that cycle?
His advice is deceptively simple. Face it. Feel it fully. Feel it. Don't think about it.
Feel it, don't think about it. What does that mean exactly?
It means putting your attention directly on the feeling in your body, the raw sensation of the anger, the sadness, the fear, without getting lost in the mental story about the feeling. Don't focus on who did what or why it's unfair. Just feel the energy of the emotion itself.
So you bypass the story-making mind.
Precisely. Because focusing on the story, the cause, often just creates or reinforces a victim identity, which keeps you stuck. Bringing pure awareness to the feeling itself allows it to dissolve.
That takes practice, I imagine.
Oh, definitely. But it's a powerful practice. And you see the intensity of unexpressed fear so vividly in Black Elk's story.
From Black Elk Speaks.
Yes. As a boy, he describes becoming terrified of thunderstorms. He heard voices crying, "Ooh, it is time, it is time."
Wow, that sounds intense for a kid.
Terribly intense. Even the sound of coyotes howling would send him running from one teepee to another in panic. His parents were worried sick, thought he might be going crazy.
Poor kid. And his poor parents.
And the most poignant part, He could not tell them what was the matter. He couldn't articulate this overwhelming inner experience.
So he was completely isolated in his fear.
Utterly. It's such a powerful illustration of how deep, unexpressed fear can trap you, cut you off from connection and understanding.
Okay, so fear can be isolating and destructive if repressed. What about the flip side? What about love?
Ah, love. Well, Ram Dass in Be Here, now he describes unconditional love in these really beautiful, almost mystical terms.
How does he put it?
He says, once you've truly experienced it, you have nowhere to go. You can run, but you can't hide. The seed is planted and it will grow in its own time. You can only grow into who you truly are.
Wow. So it's not just a feeling. It's like a fundamental shift, a seed planted in you.
That's the sense of it. Not a transaction, not even really a choice you make day to day in the ordinary sense, but an unfolding, an inevitable journey back to your true self, initiated by that experience of pure love.
That's a beautiful thought. A destiny unfolding.
And St. John of the Cross takes this exploration of divine love even deeper, though maybe through a harder path.
Dark night of the soul, right? That sounds a little dark.
It is. He describes the passive night of the senses as a bitter and terrible purification, a spiritual cleansing.
Why go through that?
The goal, he says, is stripping of the soul of its imperfections to prepare it for fruit of union with God. It's about burning away the ego, the attachments.
So suffering is purification.
Yes. But here's the paradox. Even in that darkness, that spiritual desolation, he says the soul feels keenly and sharply wounded in strong divine love. It gets a foretaste of God.
So even in the depths of the struggle, the love is present, guiding it.
Exactly. It suggests that profound suffering, when embraced as part of this purification, can actually be the very crucible where the deepest spiritual love is forged. Our imperfections become the fuel for the fire that refines us.
That's a challenging but powerful idea. And Catherine of Siena, she also talks about this divine love, right? But maybe in a gentler way.
Somewhat gentler, yes. In the top 7 Catholic classics, she emphasizes relationship. God reveals secrets to a friend, not a servant, she says, because love transforms the lover into the object loved.
Love transforms you into what you love.
Okay. Yeah, the act of loving changes your very being. And she also stresses God's incredible acceptance. She speaks of God's infinite good overlooking our infinite evils and sins.
So a love that sees our flaws but embraces us anyway?
Completely. It's a divine love that transcends judgment, that meets our imperfection with infinite compassion and clemency. It offers this incredible sense of being accepted just as we are.
That's incredibly comforting. But then, love isn't always easy, especially out in the world, with all its problems.
No, it certainly isn't. And James Baldwin, in The Fire Next Time, gives this incredibly sharp analysis of how societal injustice, specifically racism in America, poisons the well of love.
What does he observe?
He talks about this dynamic where the white man came to the Negro for love, seeking something essential, perhaps.
Okay.
But, Baldwin writes, he was not often able to give what he came seeking. The price was too high, he had too much to lose.
Meaning the white person couldn't truly open up or be vulnerable because of their position of power and privilege.
That's a big part of it. Baldwin argues that the inherent inequality, the systemic injustice, makes authentic love and connection incredibly difficult, maybe even impossible, until that equality exists. External structures can create profound barriers to the heart.
Wow. So social injustice actively prevents love from flowing freely. That's sobering.
It is. It shows how our inner emotional lives are deeply affected by the outer world.
And as we kind of wrap up this emotional journey, Siddhartha's path offers a sense of integration, doesn't it?
Beautifully so. In Hesi's Siddhartha, he reaches this point where he finally stopped fighting his fate, stopped suffering.
Not suppression, but acceptance.
Yes, a deep integration. And in that state, his separate self had flown into the oneness. He wasn't detached in a cold way, though.
Yeah.
No, it manifested as this cheerfulness of a knowledge, which is no longer opposed by any will. He became deeply connected, full of sympathy for the pain of others, full of sympathy for the pleasure of others, devoted to the flow, belonging to the oneness.
So acceptance led to oneness, which led to deep compassion for everyone.
Exactly. It's this beautiful picture of an integrated state where self-acceptance, love, and connection all flow together naturally, free from the ego's struggle. Surrender leads to wholeness.
Okay, so this journey we're talking about, understanding the self, navigating emotions, finding love and connection, it sounds amazing, but it probably doesn't just happen, right?
Chuckles. Generally not, no. It usually involves some kind of intentional path, some kind of practice or discipline.
Right, so let's explore some of those paths to transformation that different traditions offer. Where should we start?
Well, we could look at St. Teresa of Avila's interior castle. It's a classic description of a structured spiritual journey.
The interior castle. Sounds intriguing.
It is. She describes the soul moving through different mansions, like rooms in a castle, each one representing a deeper stage of prayer and closeness to God.
So a progressive journey inward.
Exactly. And interestingly, like St. John of the Cross, she sees suffering as playing a role. It can help purify the soul, she says, comparing it to souls being cleansed in purgatory before entering heaven.
Okay, so again, challenges aren't just obstacles. They're part of the process. What's the goal of reaching the inner rooms?
The ultimate goal is spiritual marriage, a complete union with God. But even when the soul receives these incredible favors, these deep experiences, Teresa emphasizes that there's still a humble duty to serve others.
Ah, so it's not just about personal bliss. It leads back out to the world.
Precisely. Spiritual growth comes with responsibility.
That makes sense. And then there's a very different kind of structured path in the Yoga Sutras, right? That sounds more disciplined.
Oh, highly disciplined. Patanjali's Yoga Sutras outline a very rigorous, systematic approach. It's almost like spiritual athletics in a way.
Okay, what's the core method?
The text says the way to overcome spiritual ignorance, which is the root problem, is through continuous discriminative insight.
Discriminative insight, like
Yeah.
seeing things clearly.
Exactly. Continuously discerning between what's real and what's not, what's the true self, and what's the egoic mind. And this insight doesn't just pop up. It occurs in stages and requires complete restraint.
Restraint of what?
Mind, senses, body. It's a very layered process of psychological and spiritual training. It demands constant practice, discipline, a focused effort to refine awareness. Very active, very intentional.
Wow, that sounds demanding. A real commitment.
It is. But then you have William James, who offers almost the complete opposite approach for some people.
William James, the psychologist.
Sure. And philosopher, yes. In the Varieties of Religious Experience, he talks about what he calls the anti-moralistic method.
Anti-moralistic, what does that mean?
He observed that for some individuals, all that conscious striving, all that effort, it just leads to nothing but failure. It becomes this impossible fever and torment.
I can imagine that. Trying harder just makes it worse sometimes.
Exactly. And for these people, James says, the way forward isn't more effort, it's actually surrender. Letting go.
Surrender. How does that work?
He says, passivity, not activity, relaxation, not intentness, should be now the rule. It's this idea of salvation through self-despair, basically hitting rock bottom with your own efforts and then letting go.
Dying to be truly born, he calls it, right?
That's the phrase. It's a passage into nothing. Giving up control, surrendering to something larger. For some, letting go is the most powerful action they can take.
So, completely different paths for different people. Striving versus surrendering?
Seems so, which suggests the journey is very personal.
But whether it's active discipline or surrender, it seems like cultivating inner awareness, being present, is key.
Absolutely. That seems to be a common thread. And Eckhart Tolle gives us a really practical way to do that.
Back to Tolle. What's his advice here?
In A New Earth, he suggests we discover inner space by creating gaps in the stream of thinking.
Gaps in thinking. Like just stopping the mental chatter.
Even for a few seconds. He says these short gaps are crucial. They stop our thinking from just being repetitive, stale, devoid of any creative spark.
So it's not about achieving long periods of silence, necessarily.
No, he emphasizes the frequency of the gaps, not the duration. Just sprinkling these little moments of awareness, of inner space throughout your day. It allows freshness and presence to come in.
I can see how that would make a difference. Little resets.
Exactly, and that connects beautifully to the cloud of unknowing.
Another mystical text.
Yes, anonymous medieval wisdom. It talks about meekness, but defines it in a surprising way.
How so?
It says, meekness in itself is not else, but a true knowing and feeling of a man's self as he is.
So meekness is radical self-honesty, seeing yourself clearly, warts and all.
Precisely. Not weakness, but truthful self-awareness. And the text suggests this ghostly work, this deep self-knowing, including knowing our filth, the wretchedness, and the frailty, isn't something to run from.
Right.
No, it's actually the foundation for deeper spiritual experience. It's by fully owning our messy humanity, our imperfections, that we actually open the door to the sacred.
Wow. Acceptance of the negative as the way in. That's profound.
It really is. And Julia Cameron, with The Artist's Way, brings this down to earth with some very practical tools for, as she calls it, creative recovery.
Right, yes. Morning pages and artist dates.
You know them.
Yeah.
So the morning pages are dumping everything out, dreams, complaints, ideas, unfiltered.
Just getting it onto the page.
And the artist dates are receiving, those solo play dates with your inner artist, your creative child. They're about filling the well, inviting inspiration back in.
I love that idea of consciously making time for both expressing and receiving, nurturing that inner creative self.
It's all about fostering that intrinsic creativity and self-connection, separate from external demands or validation, listening inward.
Which sounds a lot like the wisdom in the Tao of Pooh.
Chuckles. It does, doesn't it? That lovely little book talks about the great secret of nothing or the empty mind.
Like Pooh just sitting quietly.
Exactly. That state of mental quietness is where Pooh finds the dark pearl of Tao. The book contrasts the brain, which gets easily confused, with our inner nature, which it says cannot be fooled.
Our intuition, our gut feeling.
Something like that, our core essence. But it notes that many people do not look at it or listen to it, so they don't understand themselves well and are easily swayed by others.
So again, the importance of tuning inwards, trusting that deeper knowing.
It's about authentic self-discovery over external noise.
And it's fascinating how even someone like Musashi, the warrior, embodies this through intense practice.
Right. His way of combat strategy wasn't just about fighting. It was about deep insight gained through discipline.
Like that principle, the general knows his troops. What did that mean beyond the battlefield?
He meant understanding others requires understanding yourself first. Deep empathy comes from self-awareness.
Okay. And releasing the hilt.
That could mean literally letting go of the sword, but also, more deeply, cultivating a mindset where you can achieve your aim without conflict, or understanding that sometimes not fighting is the victory. True strength isn't always about force.
And how did he achieve that?
Through relentless, persistent training. Applying disciplined practice not just to physical skill, but to achieving profound inner understanding and wisdom. Mastery of self through mastery of practice.
This shows that transformation can happen through many kinds of dedicated effort, not just traditional spiritual ones. So we've explored the self, emotions, paths to transformation, but none of this happens in isolation, does it? We're social creatures. Connection seems crucial.
Absolutely essential. Our growth, our healing, it's all deeply intertwined with others, with community.
So let's look at that. How can we navigate our relationships more consciously? The Celestine Prophecy had some ideas on this, right? The eighth insight.
Yes, the eighth insight is all about interpersonal dynamics, relating better to everyone, kids and adults.
What's the key?
First, it talks about recognizing and naming control dramas. You know, those patterns we fall into where we try to unconsciously manipulate each other for energy or attention.
Oh yeah, I think we all know those. The intimidator, the victim, the aloof one.
Exactly. So first step is awareness, seeing those dramas for what they are and consciously choosing not to play. But then more proactively, it's about focusing on other people in a way that sends them energy.
Sends them energy.
Through genuine attention, appreciation, positive intention. It's a conscious shift from trying to get energy from others to mindfully giving it. The idea is this leads to deeper understanding, breaks old patterns, and even brings insights.
So conscious giving instead of unconscious taking. That could really change interactions.
It could. It's about more reciprocal, more truthful exchange.
And then Conversations with God takes this idea of connection way bigger, right, to the whole planet.
It does, with this concept of the species system.
Species system.
Yeah, basically the interconnected web of all life. The text argues that for any system like this to survive and thrive, the needs of all species in the system must be treated equally.
Equally. That's a high bar.
It is, and the text offers a pretty sharp critique, saying humanity has failed at this, that we've insisted on subordinating the needs of most species to the desires of only one, specifically the desires of the richest and the most powerful humans.
That is hard.
It's a call for a radical shift in perspective, to see ourselves not as masters of the planet, but as interdependent parts of a much larger whole. Our survival depends on the health of the entire system. It demands ecological empathy.
Moving from human-centric to life-centric, that's huge.
It is. And you see examples of people trying to build communities based on that kind of broader connection and acceptance. Amanda Palmer's story is pretty cool.
From The Art of Asking, what did she do?
Well, she and her musical partner, Brian, they both felt like outsiders in high school, insecure freaks, as she puts it.
Okay, relatable for many.
So when they built their fan base, they deliberately didn't target any specific group. No cool kids allowed only.
Chuckles. Right.
Instead, she says, they created the most eclectic community of fans in Boston. Art college students, Vegan punks, drag queens, metalheads, academics, just everyone.
Wow. How do they manage that?
Their intention was explicit. We wanted to smash the door down completely on exclusion. They actively fostered this diverse, accepting, weird little family.
That's amazing. Building community through radical inclusivity, just welcoming everyone as they are.
It shows the power of intentionality in creating spaces where people feel they truly belong, imperfections and all.
And that deep sense of communal responsibility, of looking out for each other, it's deeply embedded in some cultures, like the Lakota.
Absolutely. Black Elk Speaks describes this so powerfully. It wasn't just a nice idea, it was structured into their way of life.
How did it work?
The head man of the advisors would task the best hunters with the fastest horses with a specific duty to feed the helpless.
Who were the helpless?
The text specifies old and feeble people without sons, or some who have little children and no man, the most vulnerable.
And the rule was?
Whatever you kill shall be theirs, period. It wasn't optional charity. It was a fundamental obligation, ensuring the well-being of the whole tribe.
Wow. That's interdependence in action.
Yeah.
The community takes care of its own, systematically.
It's a profound example of collective care and mutual support built right into the social fabric.
And C.S. Lewis, again, he adds a spiritual layer to this interconnectedness, doesn't he? Within Christianity.
He does, in Mere Christianity. He goes beyond just social bonds. He suggests that the whole mass of Christians are the physical organism through which Christ acts, that we are his fingers and muscles, the cells of his body.
So not just like a body, but actually functioning as his body.
That's how Lewis puts it. He calls it not just an idea, but a biological or superbiological fact.
Okay, that's a deep level of connection. Each person is a vital part of the whole, actively contributing.
Exactly. It means every individual, even in their imperfection, has an indispensable role within this larger spiritual organism. Our actions, our very being, matter to the whole.
That gives individual lives a huge sense of purpose within the collective.
It really does. And maybe we can end this section with a truly expansive idea from Theologia Germanica.
Another medieval text. What's the idea?
It offers this mind-bending thought about the nature of love and goodness. It says, God loveth not himself as himself, but as goodness.
Okay. What does that imply?
It implies that the ultimate value isn't God as a person or entity, but the quality of goodness itself. So much so that the text follows up. If there were aught better than God, that must be loved better than God.
Whoa. Love the goodness above all else, even above the conventional idea of God.
That's the radical implication. It encourages us to seek, recognize, and love goodness wherever we find it, in any person, any situation, any tradition, transcending labels, dogma, even our own ego.
That fosters a truly universal compassion, doesn't it? Based on appreciating intrinsic value.
It connects us all through a shared love for what is fundamentally good, regardless of its source or form. A love that breaks down all barriers. Hashtag tag outro.
Wow, what an incredible journey we've been on in this deep dive. We've really covered a lot of ground.
We really have, from the depths of the self and the ego.
Yeah, unpacking that, finding that deeper presence underneath,
Yeah.
and then navigating that whole complex world of emotions, fear, love, suffering.
Seeing fear maybe not as an enemy, but a signpost,
Yeah.
and exploring love from personal connection right up to divine union.
And looking at all those different paths people take for transformation. The disciplined practice, the surrender, the creative nurturing.
The structured paths and the more perhaps intuitive ones.
Right. And finally, landing on the absolute necessity of connection. How we relate to each other, how we build communities, even how we see ourselves within the whole web of life.
Interdependence seems key.
So, listening back on all of this, what's the big takeaway? What's the common thread you see running through all these incredibly diverse sources?
You know, what really stands out to me is this consistent, powerful invitation. It's an invitation to engage fully, honestly, deeply with our own human experience, just as it is.
No holding back, no pretending.
Exactly. It's a call to move past those superficial ideas of perfection that cause so much stress and anxiety. We're urged instead to embrace the strength that comes from honesty, from being present, from forging genuine connections.
Connection with ourselves first, then others.
Yes. And recognizing that our humanity, all of it, the struggles, the messiness, the vulnerability, isn't some kind of design flaw we need to fix.
It's part of the package.
It is the package. It's the raw material. It's the rich, complex fabric from which real growth, deep wisdom, and authentic joy actually emerge. It really boils down to having the courage to be imperfect.
The courage to be imperfect. I love that. It feels relieving, actually.
Doesn't it?
Yeah. So maybe Maybe the real gifts of imperfection, as the title of that famous book suggests, aren't about getting rid of our flaws at all.
What are they about then?
Maybe they're about the radical act of accepting those flaws, seeing them as just part of the journey, integral to who we are.
And perhaps finding strength in that acceptance.
Exactly. Maybe it's in those moments when we dare to show up, fully vulnerable, not knowing the outcome, just being seen in our imperfection. Maybe that's precisely where we discover our greatest strength.
Our deepest resilience.
And our most authentic connection to ourselves, to each other, maybe to everything. So the question for you, listening now, might be, what new strength could you possibly uncover if you leaned into just a little bit more, embracing your own beautiful imperfections today?